Again, we're back. So I have Mr. Marricke Gane. How do you pronounce your name?
It's Gane. It's Marricke Kofi Gane.
Marricke Kofi Gane.
Yes.
Okay. What does it mean? What does Marricke is an English name?
Marricke is a very old English name, pretty
like,
much lost now. But yeah, it means kingsman.
You're like a knight. One of the
you
12.
could say that. But yeah, it means kingsman.
Right.
Yeah.
And of course, you're not new to the political scene. Before then, you had done a lot of social media activation. So somewhat, if somebody follows social media, they should get to hear your name. Let me ask you this question. Sure. Since the time you decided to surface up till now, what do you think, based on your observations, the reception has been?
The reception has been really surprising, well, tremendous actually, especially from the youth. I would say there's the youth, and then of course the middle class, and then interestingly these days the very older generation. I've had very old, I have a 70-year-old woman who called us the other day and said, can I have the PDF to your posters? And then she went off to Tama and started printing and got some of his children to start putting them up. So it's been really exciting. It's been across board and it keeps expanding. So yeah.
Now, I'm not going to go into where you went to school, etc. But just if you want to spend 1 minute.
I am a Jolalian, a proudly Jolalian, Kitaskan. Went to Kitas Secondary School. Yeah.
And I've always seen you to be a London man or a UK man.
I have stayed in London. I have stayed in the UK. I have stayed largely in Europe, actually. Okay. But interestingly, even though I was headquartered in UK, most of the work I did was in either Southeast Asia or Africa. So largely being in Africa most of the time. Yeah.
If we listen to your speeches, there's always one thing. You say you want to have a new paradigm, a shift towards a certain paradigm that will do away with all the things that we've seen as being propagated,
currently
implemented by the NPP and NDC, as we've seen in the Fourth Republic.
Yes.
Why that?
Because it hasn't worked. And from the way I have been trained, if you keep doing something and it doesn't work, you do need to stop, think back, think forward, and decide, you know, if you continue down this road, is it going to get us where we want to get? If we do know where we want to get, I certainly know where we should be getting, but whether my predecessors actually know where we should get. And so, you know, from time to time, we do need to take a stop. And I feel this year is one of those years we need to take a stop and ask ourselves, look, we've been from all the way, you know, for the last 28 years. Are we getting where we all hope to get as individual citizens or even as a collective people? And if that is not happening, then we need to say, you know what, well, something is wrong with those who are leading us there, and we need to, you know, change the driver. But
you do know, based on what surveys have indicated, what the trends in the voter pattern has indicated, independent presidential candidates, that's a hard nut to crack.
It's actually not. I mean, this year there's been a couple of, CDD did one of those which said that about over 60% of the people, sorry, over 50% of Ghanaians had no interest in either the NDC or the NPP. But beyond that, if you just talk to any ordinary person in Ghana like yourself and myself, just call anybody on the street today and ask them, you know, what do you think? Most people will tell you either that, you know what, I'm tired of this NDC and MPP. It's the usual reference you get these days. And we've never had such a time like this where there is a previous president and a current sitting president, and Ghanaians are just tired of both of them. So for me and for everybody who believes in what we're doing, this is a historical year. This is the year that history has to be made. Otherwise, we've just decided and put a stamp on everything they've done wrong for the last 27 years and pretty much saying to them, look, we are happy with everything you haven't done right. Here is another key for another 27 years. And we cannot do that.
If you look at how our governance structure has been since 1992, and we've had the interchange between NPP and NDC, what will be the 5 pointers to you that you think that we've departed from, that if we gravitated towards, ideally, we should have been where we think we should be?
Okay. Well, first of all, people always make the notion that, you know, our democracy or our governance has been messed up. The truth is the governance is doing exactly what it was engineered to deliver. One of the things I would say we need to do is that there needs to be a change in our constitution. Several changes need to happen to our constitution because as a people we have actually evolved beyond the constitution that was written for one man who wanted to become, democratically elected president. And then that era has actually moved on. We, the people, have evolved. The environments in which we operate has evolved. The international community that we relate to has evolved. And so the Constitution does need to change to reflect all of that. I think another thing we haven't done right, which we do need to do, is to force some level of meritocracy in the way we appoint in this country. And then, of course, I am very keen on planning, and I'm also very keen on ensuring that systems work. So that it doesn't matter whether it's the NDC in power or the MPP in power or Marricke Kofi Gane in power, we are setting that for you and for me, wherever we are in this country, something will work. So for me, those are key things. I don't think we've been doing enough good planning. I don't think we are meritocratic in the way we make appointments. I don't think our constitution is actually running the way it should in a modern country, and I do think that we have problems with keeping systems running.
One of the foremost societies or countries that is very much always cited to be one that has been able to build a meritorious society, Singapore.
That's correct.
Now, if you look at, you read sections of Lee Kuan Yew, their foremost leader's book, he did say that they had varied people of ethnic groupings, including Chinese, ordinary Malays, etc., Indos, who they came to meet.
Who started with, yes.
Okay, great. They even have Indians now,
That's correct,
etc.
yes.
They made sure that those who flouted regulations while in government
were punished severely. And he actually did it from the very top.
Exactly. And to serve as an example.
It's not just to serve as an example, and I agree it is to serve as an example, because if you see somebody at the very top being punished, then you actually at the bottom you realize that, you know what, this is very easy to get to me. But the other thing is also that it gives the person at the top the moral right to actually deal with those at the bottom. You have no moral right to deal with anybody at the bottom if you yourself know you're corrupt and you're not being punished. You know, so for me, it cuts down the whole corruption thing from two levels, from the top and from the bottom. And that's why they made it so fast in terms of dealing with, you know, the corrupt society they had at the time and had inherited from the Brits, and come to a first world stage very, very quickly.
How do you think we can replicate that in Ghana, in an African country, in an African society?
Look, it's not difficult.
It is not?
No, the problem is that we've had leaders who operate a party. We've always run the business of government as though we are running a party. And if we continue to do that, see, in a party, it's almost as though you and I are family. So, and I'm talking about the way parties are run in Ghana. People are families within a party. You can't punish somebody because he's part of the party. If you punish them, you've just handed ammunition to your opposition party. And therefore, if we carry that into government, where we appoint people simply because they are part of a party, then it means also that when they do something wrong, you cannot punish them. And we've seen that happen all the time. People do wrong. They either don't get fired or just get pulled back into the seat of government, and everybody carries on as though nothing ever happened. And so there has to be a separation between the art of doing politics and the actual business of running a state. And we haven't done that. I feel that the whole concept of independent candidacy actually helps that, because I am coming into office without the whole my boys agenda. So I don't owe it to a party chairman to give jobs to his children. I don't owe it to the party executives to give jobs to themselves or their children. And I don't obviously owe it to the boys who made the most noise or who gave the most money within the party. So, you know, this will stop somewhat, and the whole independent candidacy will help that happen.
In the history of elections in the United States, since the 1700s,
yes,
around 1788, when they've had independent candidates to date, they've garnered around 5%. Also, we do know that over time, they've been able to influence elections by being third-party realigning people or institutions. Okay, you take out George Washington, etc. But then the realignment is very important, and that is in the history of the United States. In Ghana, the opposition parties have not gotten more than 4% over time. Now, that also gives us a great indication as to where you need to go to direct what focus you need to give your campaign as you communicate your messages. Have you thought of that?
I have. But here's another reality, aside the one you've just mentioned. The other reality is that we're in Africa. Ghana is certainly not modeled on the US. But here's another thing that I might add. Benin also has just had an independent candidate. Tunisia has had one. And they're all independent candidates bringing across board. Technically, as a matter of fact, one of our interim heads of states has been Akufo-Addo. Back in the days, he was, you know, technically he is an independent candidate if you want to look at it in the most critical time. He didn't actually belong to a party, or, you know, he was a judge, you know. So effectively, it's not new that we should have an independent candidacy. I don't know what others have done before me. I know what I need to get done now. And for me, that is the most important thing right now, that we're doing something that has never been done before.
All right. Please, we're announcing our Zoom IDs. We want you to also join us. So we do have a Zoom ID. It will be on your screens, 93655382462, and then the password as well. The password is also there. Make sure you join us. We'll take 5 at a time, as much as we can. We will want you to interface or interact with Mr. Marricke Kofi Gane. He is an aspiring independent presidential candidate. All right. We just had a voter registration exercise. What is your foremost observation about the registration exercise that just ended?
Look, I'm going to be honest with you. I've never thought this sort of processes have ever been necessary if we had done our work well in the last 28 years. Because you see, we spend these amounts of money every 4 years to do updates. You know, this time around we spent over 100 million to get things like that done. You could equally have a centralized, how do we call it, a centralized citizen ID system that at the end of every 3 years or in every 4 years, the EC can just, you know, by the press of a button, have a printout of every eligible citizen whose record has been updated, who we know is above 18 years, and just decided, you know what, yeah, come up and vote, and everybody who comes have one single ID, run it through a system, it connects back to the database, everybody can be ascertained whether they truly are Ghanaian, up to date on everything, and just go out and vote. It means we wouldn't even be voting in lines because the system would have been so straightforward that you shouldn't spend more than 15 or 30 minutes at a voter registration center. So, you know, for me, these things we keep doing every 4 years is a reflection that indeed, where the identification process for a country is required, we have failed hugely. And what we don't get most of the time is that in that failure also, it means that we have also failed in attempting to do what real economy is. If we don't have this sort of identification system, you don't have an economy. Because if you cannot identify people, you cannot run an economy. Beyond all of that, if you don't have a centralized or a plugged-in ID system, you cannot also enforce law and order. And so there's so many things that are intertwined with all of this.
Well, it's been done. The National Identification Authority.
No, that is totally, the concept is totally wrong.
How should it
See,
be?
because what you want is an ID system that sits in the middle, connected to the various institutions.
But that's what's been done.
No, it's not. See, what we have now is an isolated department called the National Identification Authority that is sitting here and doing everything, and everybody else is disconnected from it. What we want to see is an ID system that sits there. If you are the Ministry of Health, it should be your responsibility, and only you have that, access to be able to change things like somebody's health record, somebody's date of birth, or things of the sort. And that's you. If I am the Ministry of Justice, we should be able to make sure everybody's judgment is attached to that record. And then we can have the police ensuring that they are the only people who put in there any criminal records and all that. If we have that, no matter where you are in this country, you can be identified. You can do business. But you're
crying over spilled milk. Look, we're now compiling the database. After it's been complete, everybody will plug in.
No, that's not how. You don't design databases like that. You design the plugins from day one. You don't do something in isolation and then subsequently, because what we're doing now, the system we have now with the NIA is not talking to any other system in any other department. So
you're saying that it's because they're not talking to each other, we're now going to input data after we've completed the complete. And that's additional cost.
It is additional cost.
The migration itself.
And it's not just additional cost in one direction. It's going to be additional cost to all the other, institutions you want to have the plug-in.
So we're talking SNITs?
Yes.
Ghana Health Service?
Exactly. The immigration, you're talking pretty much every institution.
Debts and debts?
Yes. So you see, we need to plan these things and get it right from day one. And so when I hear people saying, oh, our economy is going to expand, I ask, which economy is going to expand?
So if you are elected president come December 7th,
yes, amen to that.
What will you do starting your first week if you are inaugurated from the 7th of January, 2021?
The first thing you will see us do is that there will be a clamp on corruption. That's one. As soon as I step in office, you'll be able to smell yourself that this is a no corruption zone, because I want it to be shown at the very highest level. But that aside, one of the first things we want to do is to carry out an asset audit in this country. Make sure as a government we know every asset that this country owns, where they are, whether they are being useful or not being useful, whether it belongs to the government but is in the hands of a private individual. We need a full asset audit of this country, because there's money being wasted everywhere in the name of government, for which the Ghanaian people are not benefiting from. It's happening in the health sector, it's happening in the education sector. Look, I read a report I'm a chartered accountant. I read a report by the ACCA a couple of years back. The efficiency coefficient of this country's health sector is 0.3%, which means that every 1 cedi, every 1,000 cedis we introduce into the health economy, we are only getting value for 300 cedis of it. So there's a lot of waste sitting out there that we need to pull together and say, okay, now we know all these are assets. Half of them are not being used, and they won't be used again. So let's do something about that. Otherwise, we're maintaining all these things around, and it's just taking money out of our system.
Well, we've been joined by some of our viewers who also joining on video, and that's good. Okay, so please make sure you unmute when I call you. But please, right now, just mute your sound so that we don't get feedback. And also reduce the volume on your set, okay? Reduce the volume on your TVs. So we'll take 5 at a time. Charles, please unmute. Please unmute. Please unmute. Ask any question you want Mr. Marricke Kofi Gane to also respond to or answer.
Please, I heard you talking about Bitcoin or blockchain. My apologies. How are you going to use that for governance, please? Thank you.
Right. So I know I mentioned blockchain during the last debate, Joy debate. I think one of the key areas and one of the most easy areas we want to start deploying blockchain is in the area of the NHIS. And the reason why we want to do that is that we want the very minimal human interferences, because there's two sides to the whole NHIS working. There's the, three sides actually. There's the government, there's the institutions that, require the NHIS services to be delivered, and then there are the service providers there as well. We feel that there's too many individual interactions, and these are the problems that drive the inefficiencies, because there are several levels of several persons, everybody trying to get their interest in the financial process that goes around NHIS. And I also feel that by way of introducing blockchains, we take away all the human interfaces that generate inefficiencies, and ensure that we deliver more efficiently in how we use resources within the NHIS system.
Well, let's go to the next viewer, and Ohineba, please unmute and ask your question.
Hello, Roland.
Yes, sir.
I'm Ohineba, calling from Kofi
Gane.
I'm Ohineba, calling from Kofi.
Okay, please.
In the Brown region.
Okay, please go ahead, Ohineba.
My problem is with the moral deterioration of our youth these days. They are very much disrespectful, talk anyhow, and the likes. So how is it going to deal with this growing situation that the country is facing now?
All right, great question. Well, great question. Let's go to our next. Emmanuel, please unmute and ask Mr. Marricke Kofi Gane.
Can you hear me?
Yes, please. Please go ahead.
All right. Yes. So I want to find out what kind of policies Mr. has when it comes to the issue of human development. Because then I feel that one of the best ways to develop a country or an economy is by investing in people. So what specific policy or program does he have in mind when it comes to, that is, should he win the election, that would be aimed towards increasing people's personal development or overall human development?
Okay, so first one is morality and then human development. Let's go to the fourth question. Okay. So please,
morality.
Yes.
Right. So morality is
moral decadence.
Look, morality is learned. We're never born with it, so it is learned. And the only way youth learn immorality in this case is because we, the adults, are playing a lot of immorality, and that is why they learn it. But another critical thing is that youth are learning immorality very quickly because they see immorality within the adult space go unpunished. I have often said that, I believe in total adherence to the law. I believe 200% in punishment. I have often said that, look, if you're my brother and you even steal, the first thing you will do is to go to jail, and then I'll come and visit you in jail. So that's one of my responsibilities as your president, and the other is my responsibility as your brother. So I believe punishment needs to happen. I don't compromise on integrity. I don't compromise on accountability. So once we start punishing people, people will line up, people will learn. Most people ask me, how do we change society's mindset? It's about enforcing laws. If people do good and you reward them for doing good, they know that they have to continue doing good. If somebody does wrong and they go unpunished, you've just communicated to that person that, wrong and doing good are actually no different. You can continue because none attracts punishment. So I want to punish people and punish them severely. The third thing is human development. I can't remember the name of the gentleman who asked, but one of the things I'll suggest is please, after today's program, go to our website and download one of our manifestos. It's free on there on Ghana, for Ghana, and the number 4Ghana.com. Go on there. One of the things our manifesto says is that there are various ways we want to develop human capital. One of them is a big shift within our educational cycle. We want to overhaul the system, change the curriculum, and make it a lot more competency-based. For those who are already out and are not doing anything, we want to introduce a multi-skilling process, which means that people can learn between 2 and 4 competency-based jobs so that they can have jobs on their hands irrespective of which one is filling out at any point in time.
All right. Let's take one more question and then, well, okay. It looks like our time is up. Okay, so now I see that when I go through your manifesto document,
right.
as you have it,
thank you.
You're very big on making sure that the education of our country
works.
And the student population is also tilted into the spheres of science, technology, and mathematics.
Yes. Yes.
Because that's the way of the world now?
No, it's not. I mean, we've known what STEAM has been able to achieve for all the very developed countries. In fact, we are looking at it a totally different way. Rather than saying, okay, every student should learn a bit of math, a bit of science, a bit of technology and all that, what we are actually saying is that we want that to become the basis of every subject. So if you're learning architecture, for example, we say STEM, right? We want you to learn the science behind architecture, so the facts and everything that makes architecture work. We want you to learn the technology of architecture, which means we want you to study the techniques, the technology that is currently available that makes architecture work better. And so if there are softwares you should learn, you should be learning the most basic at least. We want you to learn the engineering of architecture. In other words, how can you use architecture to develop society? And then we want you to learn the mathematics, which is the relationship of things. How does architecture relate to, health, for example? How does it relate to decentralization, for example? So we want students to start learning the whole concept of critical thinking embedded in the subject, not as a separate subject by itself, and somebody comes to class and say, I'm teaching you critical thinking and creative problem solving. It has to be embedded in the way we learn.
Yes, and that'll be it for now. And thank you for passing through the studio. We hope that
thank me for having me.
Yeah, before the election comes to a close, we'll definitely have you within the period.
I would love that.
Have some great conversations.
Thank you very much.
Look, you're the man to have at the moment. You've changed the narrative as it is.
I hope I have.
Yeah. So continue changing the narrative because we need this sort of narrative to change as far as public opinion is related. And make sure you go to his site officially. You can go download his manifesto as well. And it's www.gane, that's Gane 4 and the number 4, Ghana. You know how to spell Ghana.com. So ganeforghana.com. You get all the updates there. But look, we're taking a break. When we come back, we will have the beautiful Miss V right here in the studio.